Morning. Morning. I'm here to tell you a story. It's an interesting story about people. Most of us came here from someplace else. And coming here from someplace else is part of that story that I'm going to tell you. But I have to thank a few people to start. I'm a biologist and not a historian. And we have an excellent historian sitting right there, Nathan Woolsey. So in part, I'm stealing his information. But also Brian Rucker's doctoral dissertation is an excellent source. He completed that, I believe, Nathan, in 1990. And it's an excellent source of information about antebellum Northwest Florida, especially this county, and Baghdad, and what happened here. And I think about 8 people were involved in making Baghdad what Baghdad is. So there are a lot of stories about that. Today I'm going to talk about one of those individuals. His name was Benjamin Woodson Thompson. And the reason that I want to talk about him is totally accidental. My wife and I, Pat sitting back there, came here from someplace else. She came here, of course, via England and North Carolina. And her family was involved in banking and manufacturing and so forth. And there was a little war, if you remember. And that little war involved a lot of bombing. And she remembers the bombs of the Luftwaffe falling where she lived and so forth. But as a result, her family is here now. And my family came here from Europe for similar reasons. From Germany and from Sicily and so forth via New York. You remember a place called Ellis Island? Through that route and so forth, and eventually to South Florida. And Pat and I met when we were students at the University of Miami when I was completing my doctorate there in marine biology. So I'm not a historian, I'm a biologist, but I love history. It's a lot of fun. We both love history. We came to Baghdad accidentally one day. We arrived in this area in 1969. In 1974, we'd often seen it actually, little signs said Baghdad, and we were kind of interested. Baghdad? Wait a minute, it's not spelled quite the same way. What is Baghdad all about? So we drove one day in 1974 into Baghdad and fell in love instantly. This is a beautiful place. It's a really fascinating place. And we saw the Thompson House then, and we didn't realize it was for sale. But a few weeks later, we did discover that it was for sale. So here we are. We live in the Thompson House now. So that's the start of the story, because Benjamin Woodson Thompson built that structure. So if you live in an old house, what's your first question? Who built it? How old is it? Well, trying to answer that question has been rather fascinating. So I do thank Nathan, and I thank Brian Rucker, but I also thank the members of the Thompson family, in particular Joan Thompson Steele, because she gave me a lot of information that I used. And then there was a lot of accidental information that came along that I tried to use to put together the story. Who built the house? When was it built? Because if you remember, right after the Civil War, the courthouse in Milton burned. Keep those carpetbaggers away, So it burned. And it took all the records. Isn't that a problem, Nathan? It's a major problem in terms of tracking what happened around here. It's very difficult to do it if you don't have a good track. So I'm using information from many different sources. Let's get started. Benjamin Woodson Thompson came here from someplace else. He came here from Kentucky. All right. So how did he get here? Well, he was born in 1809. Who was president of the United States in 1809?
Adams? James Madison.
Harrison.
Madison, I heard you. Madison was president. He died in 1876. Who was president of the United States in 1876?
Well, Rutherford B. Hayes became president.
Well, Grant just went out and Rutherford Hayes came in. So, okay, there's the interval that we're talking about. That's what I'm interested in, that interval of time. So if he was born in Kentucky, how did he arrive in this area, and when did he arrive here? All right. Do they have steamboats in 1809? Hey people, you're back in school. I want to hear the answer. Come on, let's go. Yes or no? No, they were just getting started. However, when he came here, when he was maybe 21, he was here in 1830. They did have steamboats, all right? So how did he get here? Well, the easy way was to get on a steamboat and go down the Ohio River and then down the Mississippi. Who knows where St. Francisville is? You know where St. Francisville is. What do you know about St. Francisville?
Rosedown, mostly.
Rosedown Plantation is located in St. Francisville. So let me tell you a little story, a story that was told to me. After we had moved into the Thompson House, a gentleman appeared at the door. A lot of people come to the door and say, I'm a member of the Thompson family, let me in. It happens all the time. So he came to the door, he said, I'm a member of the Thompson family, let me in, I want to see your house. And he had his son with him. Would you let him in? Well, he told me where he was from. He said, I'm from Bagdad, Arizona. Did you know there's Bagdad, Arizona? Bagdad, Arizona is a company town, and it was settled by people from Bagdad, Florida in 1880. But they've forgotten that. They literally forgotten that. They don't remember it. But if you look, they have 17 Thompson families living there. Okay, but let's get back to the point. So he came to the front door and he said, okay, here I am, let me in. So he said, when he told me where he was from, I let him in. And we had a very nice discussion. And the reason he wanted to stop and come into the house, his son was doing a project for school. And the project was on the history of Bagdad, Arizona. So he was telling his son, well, our family came there indirectly through Bagdad, Florida. So they came here to see their roots, so to speak. So then he told me a story, Michael, about Rosedown Plantation. He said, well, Benjamin Woodson Thompson went down the river and he stopped at Rosedown Plantation. And he looked at that old, that's a beautiful place, isn't it, Michael?
It's beyond.
Does it look a little bit like the Thompson House?
Yes.
It does. So he said, well, that's where the idea came from for the construction of the Thompson House, because he looked at Rosedown Plantation. Okay, if Benjamin Thompson was here in this county in 1830, that story, what did I hear just a few minutes ago? Tall tale. That's a tall tale. Why? Because they built it in 1834. It's a nice story. It's an interesting story. And it probably has no basis in reality. There's a lot of that in history, isn't there, Nathan? A huge amount of this kind of confusion. Now, it's possible that he did go down the river a little bit later. But why would he stop at Rosedown in the first place? Well, that was common. People would stop at those old buildings. Okay, so there's part of the story there. And did you pass out, Joan, those pieces of paper?
Yes, and if anybody did not get one.
That story is in there. So is it real? I don't know. Probably not. Let's continue and keep it up here. There's much more coming. All right, so he came here to be a person involved. He was going to work with Forsyth and Simpson. And of course, Forsyth was very much involved in where, Nathan? Arcadia, and building the Arcadia Mill. But when the Arcadia Mill, that started in what, about 1830 in that area in time? Was anything happening here in 1830? I believe quite a bit was happening here. There was a gentleman by the name of John Hunt here. There was also a gentleman by the name of Jackson Morton here. And Hunt and Morton were here for economic reasons. They were manufacturers. They were manufacturing come on, students, speak up. What? Bricks. Why were they making bricks? Fort Pickens, Fort McRae. Okay. So they had huge government contracts and they were making bricks. Where's Hunt located? Where was Hunt located? Who knows? You guys don't know local history. Come on now, you live here, you know local history. Where's Hunt's plantation? Just across the river, directly across the river from Baghdad. So he had large brickyard over there and sawmill. And what was happening over here? I'm reasonably sure there was activity on this side of the river also. But we don't have clear record about what was happening.